So switch it back over here. I don't want to talk like Ryan.
I'm Ryan Shroud.
And then we were fired.
Oh, he never watches this.
Ryan, if you watch it, don't watch till the end.
Cue angry message.
All right, guys. There's a delay. I'm sorry. But, you know, I'll talk back to the chat for a
You
while.
shouldn't talk back to people, Alan.
I'll talk back. I will talk back. I will talk back to the chat. And Josh might jump in afterwards and stuff. So if you got some questions and stuff, hopefully about storage stuff, since that's my thing, it's my bag, baby. When Josh returns, we already know what is his bag, baby. So, 3 boxes with Zune logos on them. Ryan does have Zunes. 2 Zunes. Too soon? Architecture changes that might evolve with PCs due to crosspoint. Just all sorts of things. Just imagine if you had stuff that was RAM that didn't evaporate when the PC shut down. You know. The bottleneck is most likely NVMe. NVMe 2 is not... the NVMe is not the thing. PCIe would be the bottleneck. Because if you had a device that had crosspoint in it, the speed is so much higher that really you're just going to want more lanes to talk to it. NVMe just reduces the latency per I/O.
Yeah, but there's a reason we haven't seen a by 16 controller yet, right?
Sure there is, but that's because it was kind of hard to get that much kind of bandwidth out of just NAND flash.
Yeah.
Right? So Optane stuff and Crosspoint stuff is just going to be so much faster that you could saturate. You're easily, you know.
It's gonna have to be like by 8 card, isn't it?
Doing it.
I think
doing it well.
I think it'll get to the point of like, it'll rapidly get to the point of you can only really go higher than so many lanes before you start. Like, I don't think they would go much past by 8 until they shift to something different or something, because it's like if you could saturate by 8 with just storage. Who said what? But if you, yes, Ken is an actual person. Oh, but you're not going to be able to hear Josh. Guess that doesn't matter.
Why not?
Oh, he can. He's just got to plug his headset in. Yeah, but it'll quickly, if you could saturate by 8 with just raw storage, right? You're talking like 8 gig per second.
You're doing something right.
Like, so when it's that fast, right? You're starting to approach like your memory speeds and stuff, and like
Ludicrous.
and you're also at like, you know, say you were running code right off of that or something, like your processor can only execute the code so quickly, and like, or manipulate the data so quickly.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, you just kind of hit like a plateau where you really need it connected to the CPU in some other way, and I think it'll just shift more. That's why I was saying that computers might be completely different, because you would just have like one pool. You wouldn't have your RAM and your drive, like
Your storage.
Your storage. Like you would shrink the amount of RAM you would need, because if you had stuff for like registers and like virtual memory-ish kind of things, you don't want to burn through Crosspoint write cycles with that, because Crosspoint is still able to burn through write cycles. It just has a heck of a lot more of them than NAND, and it doesn't wear in an amplified manner either. Like if you do 4K random to a NAND flash based SSD, you're doing, like, you take 6 meg, you divide 4K into it, and steady state, that is the amplification factor. So however many times 4K goes into 6 megabytes, every time you do another 4K, the SSD is gonna have to manipulate or like erase 6 megabytes worth of flash. So that's how you just start flying through and like burning out flash relatively quickly. You don't have to worry about that for Crosspoint. So that's cool. But anyhow, yeah, it would just like change a lot of stuff. M.2 RAID on X99. I don't know. We were talking about that the other day, actually. If they would backport it.
They have a bit of history of doing that with the RST stuff, but
yeah, the concern is that there's an awful lot of support that has to be in the UEFI BIOS to handle that, and if like Intel would have to come out with the BIOS version that had the RST stuff integrated in that way, and then they have to get the motherboard manufacturers to adopt it and implement it correctly, and it's already buggy on the Z170 platform.
that could be what they're waiting for, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Why you don't use a Western Digital RAID in a desktop PC? There's absolutely nothing wrong with using a RAID in a desktop PC.
It's a little more expensive.
It's like $5 or $10 more expensive. But if you have any plans on buying something, like say buying another one of them and moving them to something that's in a RAID in the future, then sure, just do it. The only hesitation is that say you have a bad sector on a desktop PC for your operating system, and it's a sector that was bad but that could have been corrected after 10 or 15 seconds, say, hypothetical. A RAID will give up on that and return an error after like 7 seconds. The idea is that you don't want to wait too long to the point where a RAID is going to time out the drive, and then bad things happen. If you're trying to do a rebuild and one of the drives times out, that's bad, right? Then RAID fall down, go boom, basically. Like, it just crashes the whole thing, and it's really bad for a RAID. So you never want a drive to hang for too long trying to read a bad sector. That's what that TLER thing is, time-limited error recovery. So a RAID has that, and there's a chance that, like, if you
I thought that was like too long didn't read.
it's basically
Too long error recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, actually, is it the same? Oh, it's TLER. Did I say TLDR?
No,
Anyway.
you said TLER.
Okay. So my point is, you can use it in a desktop. There's a chance that if you had a bad sector, if it was a non-red drive, or it was just like a black or something, a black would sit there and chew on it for like 30 or 40 seconds before it finally said, oh, I can't do it. And like Windows would freeze, and like your mouse would eventually start like hanging, and like none of the windows would respond during that time. That's basically what storage does when it hangs like that on the OS drive. But yeah, I mean, really nothing wrong with using a RAID as long as you understand that there is that difference in how long it takes to try to, plow through an error when it gets it. I just did a scrub on the, how many did I plug in at the house? 12 6TB RAIDs. And while I was gone at Flash Memory Summit, I instructed that PC to read everything front to back on all 12 drives. And there were no errors. If that gives you an idea of the reliability for what I've seen for Western Digital RAIDs. Oh, and all the drives were full. So,
Of course they were.
Of course they were.
Of course they were.
that's the rule of storage. Like, the more you have,
I guess you'd be pretty stupid to have more storage if you weren't filling it.
I need to actually like pick up another couple and add it to the RAID, because in my house I generate media and my wife generates media. She shoots like a Canon 7D on like rapid. She takes like 5 shots rapid of everything that she takes a picture of.
G.
Yeah,
That's
like,
just excessive.
it is. I constantly, I'm like,
That's a lot of data.
I'm like, do you really need that many?
And she goes,
Ansel
yeah.
Adams did it in
And
one.
She does. She goes,
In
yeah.
one.
It's my mistake because I bought her like some huge SD cards, so she, tries to fill them up every
So
time.
will DirectX 12 ever use more than quad cores? Is there a reason they don't? Yeah, I think essentially, depending on the programming, DX12 could use infinite cores, but that depends again on what you're trying to do in the rendering pipeline. So I don't have a real set specific answer for that. But
Someone's
yes,
saying it goes up to 6 currently.
It can do more threads depending on the workload that the developer is pushing.
Yeah, it is all down to how it's coded, right? So you have
Yeah.
to instruct whatever it is.
In DX11, I mean, you can only do so much multi-threading with rendering and setup and whatnot, but DX12 kind of removes that and expands it out. So you could, in theory, do a ton. They probably have an absolute hard limit, like 256 cores or 512 threads or something like that. But
I forget what the
depends
limit
on-
of Windows addressing is. It's like 72, I think.
So
Yeah.
to what?
Cores, threads, before it like clusters them or some weird stuff.
Well, I mean, even in everyday operating system, you've got thousands of threads going on, but not all of them are actively being processed. So, yeah, it depends on what the developer wants to do. It's just a lot more freedom and independence for him.
Oh, Ken, it's too bad we don't have the top-down camera going.
Why? What happened?
He has this awesome thing to show off.
From my archives, which has now become the said archives because
Don't
I'm
show it
tired
to
of
me.
storing stuff.
Guess
This
what that
is
is?
guess what it is.
It's got a ribbon cable.
It does. It has a ribbon.
Ribbon is a and those are actual depressible keys.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's an old calculator.
It has huge tracks of RAM.
It is a Motorola 6800 development kit.
Uh-huh.
Huh.
That someone was throwing out that I saved.
Complete with
all of the manuals.
complete with the manual.
Oh wow! Look at that! Look at that font.
I know, right?
That is the tech font. The tech Microsoft font or whatever.
What's the font that everybody makes fun of?
There were a few.
Yeah, there are a few. Comic Sans.
Comic Sans. So that's the tech Comic Sans.
It is.
That's awesome.
I meant to look at the schematics for this the other day and try to apply power to it and boot it. So I think it's just 5 volts. It's just a 5-volt line.
Actually, that PCB does resemble the PCB inside of a Commodore 64. What's really funny
Not
is
68,000, 6800.
yeah, not 68,000, 6800.
A little bit older.
Yeah.
68040 is the best processor ever made. Ugh. I taught assembly
that.
language programming
Look
on the
at that.
68040.
Look at that cover. That cover is awesome.
3-ring
is.
binder.
Yeah.
So 6800, oh wait, no, that was like 5201 or something.
It's
Well,
capable of addressing
Motorola
65K of memory.
Motorola was
16-bit.
bomb at the time. Come
Yeah.
on.
8-bit parallel processing.
well, they also, oh yeah, 6502, that one. So I memorized one of those command sets because it was the same command set on the smart cards for DirectTV back in the day.
Yeah, of course you would.
And I might have coded my own firmwares for those.
Just for experimentation.
For experimentation, of course, yes.
I don't know where there was the Pocket Basic guide for this. I don't know where it went. Oh no, it's on the table. It fell out.
The Pocket Basic Guide.
Yeah, the Pocket Guide
Oh,
to
yeah,
Basic
yeah.
for the 6800.
How old is Alan? Alan is almost 40.
So he's like 39.
He's 39.
I just turned 43.
Sorry, the
How
instruction
did that
set.
happen?
I don't know. I don't know.
I
how that
remember
happened.
I was playing MechWarrior 2, and it was all a blur, and now I'm talking to you guys.
Yeah, that's what happens when you blink. Easiest way to use to clone an 8.1 system.
Hey, Josh.
is the...
Heavy gear? What?
I've been here for like 6 years.
That's true.
That is so strange.
September 2009.
I remember when you couldn't get into bars at like CES and
That's
stuff.
true. I was
that
trying.
wasn't too long
I was
ago, to
trying
be
to slip him
honest.
drinks like Ryan wouldn't let me. I was like, "Come on, get the kid a drink." He's busting his ass here.
And now look at how unproductive I am.
DMI lanes on Skylake versus direct CPU lanes on X99. X99 is still going to be quicker on latency. Just because it's going straight to the CPU. There's another hop that has to take place on if you're going over DMI. So you at least will have a PCIe packet has to stop in one place and then turn around inside a buffer and then go on. You're still talking like relatively small turnaround, but anyway.
4K HTPC. What's better, Broadwell or Skylake? I don't know the outputs of Skylake versus Broadwell. I mean,
Skylake doesn't support HDMI 2.0 out of the box. However, there are a lot of Z170 motherboards that have a converter from DP 1.2 to HDMI 2.0 on the board.
Wait a minute. Does X99 have integrated? No, right?
No.
So
he wasn't talking about X99. He was talking about Broadwell.
Oh. He didn't
which would be
Broadwell
Z97.
versus Skylake.
I mean, the 5775C would be an interesting HTPC processor because of the Crystal L stuff, but yeah, I don't know.
Technology. Intel is a little behind the times in display output.
Yeah, but they've never really been cutting with
edge.
Any interface. They've never been cutting edge. Like look at how long SATA 6 and USB 3 and
yeah.
Oh hell, DB15.
Josh, what was that cloning software you used? The free stuff, the free one.
You had to ask.
You used it a while ago.
MigrateMyPC.com, something like that.
What? I thought it was
No.
like some other. It was some other name just of a
Give
piece
me
of
a
software.
second.
Well,
You're so hard on me.
Robert.
Yeah.
Minitool Partition Wizard.
Minitool Partition Wizard. There, Robert.
Yeah.
Just freeware to clone your thing over to another drive.
Oh, it does great. And it does the 4K align.
Yes, that is important. Although it should already be 4K aligned, but if you're cloning to a bigger drive, I tend to like to choose the option to just do a straight clone without like rearranging or re-expanding anything.
Really?
Because Windows will expand a partition for you.
Yeah, but
Then you're using the native thing. So you can clone over to the other drive, boot on that. Now you're still limited to the same amount of space because the partition didn't get rearranged, but then you can just go into disk management and just expand the partition.
Sure.
I just like using the real deal as opposed to the other tools, which are by definition like an aftermarket way of messing around with your partition. But 4K G-Sync IPS. That'll be great, but it'll still be limited to 60 hertz.
oh yeah.
That really hurts.
Unfortunately.
It's kind of funny how fast we got to that limit. Like,
there's
man,
a lot of-
4K 60, that's the future.
4K 60
and
is
now we're
great.
like,
And then we're like, what? It's
Can
not.
we get 120?
Yeah, we want 120.
There's a lot of links in the chain
Yeah.
to get to 4K above 60.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for quite a while.
Recommendations for a cheapish 1 terabyte SSD, and Biohazard has it. Because that is cheapish.
850 EVO. I
Put,
mean,
put
like,
1 terabyte 850 EVO into Camel, and keep watching it.
or like a BX100. They make a terabyte of that, don't
I think they do.
Actually, if you want cheap 1 terabyte SSD, go to that. What's it? Crucial Savings.
Yeah, the M500 refurbs.
Oh, yeah.
Dirt cheap.
What
right
is
now.
that website?
It was like
crucialsavings.com. They will occasionally refresh a stock of 960 and 480 gig M500s.
Yep.
And the 960 gig was what, 18 cents a gigabyte?
Something like that.
It's
It was,
$180.
it's like Dell Outlet for Crucial.
You remember back in the day when Crucial had the 256 gig Samsung drives refurbs on sale, and Ryan bought like 3 of them?
Yeah.
Because they were so cheap at
Yeah.
like $300 a pop.
We were both using that SSD until probably a couple of years ago. It was a SATA 2 original Samsung controller. Like,
I do trust Windows more to expand a partition than the program that
why
clones
haven't
the
they
drive.
just built cloning into Windows?
They should have. But, for rainbow tables, how would one best calculate the space and size needed for chains being used in order to do pre-calculation for time memory trade-offs with non-salted hashes?
Wow.
I can't go there. Not tonight. But actually, that is kind of a good question. Every time I've dealt with rainbow tables, they've already been like, all that math has already been done. But I would imagine you can just like do some simple math to figure out You have to know what the calculation speed is and everything else before you can even figure that out. But non-salted hashes? Okay, so you're
That's
just
good,
saying
at
straight
least.
hashes. Yeah. We had a big old rainbow table that I think was like 10 gig.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't 10 gig. It was 10 terabytes for what was it? It was like either zip or RAR. No, it was zip. Password protected zips. We had a 10 terabyte rainbow table, and that was at NC Doc. That wasn't at anything kind of a secret place or anything like that. But
I do like you can find gigantic distributions of rainbow tables like that big.
Yeah.
That people have done.
yeah, they're out there.
I chewed on one. I forget what it was for. There's some distributed computing project.
Was it tasty?
Oh, it was. I mean, it was a rainbow, so.
Yeah. Taste all the colors.
Who is that asked me the rainbow tables question?
Airy.
36
Aircon.
gig ones for
Aircon.
LM7 full key space ASCII. Nice.
If you want to talk about rainbow tables, email me. This would
Yeah,
be
this would be
calculating
me
it based on
calculating
number.
based on number of rounds and size of bitmaps.
Yeah. It's the Alan Reddit AMA. It's funny. It's much more real time.
Yeah. Less type-ed.
Full key space for LM7. 36 gig. Maybe it wasn't. No, it must have been in terabytes because it had to go.
Yeah.
It had to go
10
on.
gig isn't all that big of a rainbow table.
Yeah. It had to go in. The only place it was on the SAN first, but it was an Apple SAN and it was crappy and it crashed if you looked at it wrong. And then I built this replacement SAN, which was 96 terabytes per side. And then we were able to have the rainbow tables on the SAN, along with a bunch of hard drive images for forensics. Taste the rainbow. No.
No.
Mainstream.
Oh, Apple SAN.
Mainstream Intel CPUs with over 16 lanes of PCIe? I don't know. I don't think there's really a need to go consumer over 16 lanes. Not for a while. I mean, it's been that way for a while.
You know, what was the last kind of big Apple server that had terrible I/O?
The Xserve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have we ever heard anything more
No.
about them going past
No.
that, or are they just
They've
saying screw that?
They've EOL'd that.
They EOL'd
5-6
that,
years ago.
and then even the Apple SAN stuff, they ended up, like, for their support contracts, they ended up rebranding, like,
EMC, I think.
EMC with,
Yeah.
like, a promise controller in it or something, and, like, it didn't even look nice anymore.
Yeah.
But
Well, and it's like if you, I've seen several things like this, but I saw a post from a company the other day who has enterprise software that depends on OS 10. They do image processing and image hosting. ImagePix was the name of the company, and they do tons of traffic. And like they have to rack mount Mac Minis, and this was on rack mounting Mac Pros. They had about, I think they had 4 across in a 4U rack and a 4U enclosure. But it's like there's no option. If you can't you can't run enterprise software that depends on OS 10 really, which is weird.
oh wait, it is 20 more. Well, Crosspoint displays NAND-based SSDs. If you want performance, yep. That's why they're gonna roll that out Enterprise first. But they did say they're gonna do Enterprise to Ultrabook.
Yeah, it's intriguing.
Small capacity SSD in an Ultrabook.
Yeah. Tell you what, if I could buy this laptop with a Skylake processor and a Crosspoint SSD in it, I'd do it in a Heartbeat, not SSD, Crosspoint drive.
Hardpoint.
Crosspoint.
Optane drive.
Yeah,
That's
one
gonna
of
be
those.
Yeah, with
difficult.
your butane battery,
Why not methane?
because butane is easier to handle.
850
Doesn't smell like shite.
850 Evo is damn fast for a SATA drive. It's about as fast as you can go for a SATA drive. I mean, saturating SATA on just about every possible operation is kind of about as fast as you can go
It's true.
on a SATA drive.
If only they'd get a single cable, like SATA 12G.
Yeah, why is that not a thing? We have SAS 12G. Why is SATA 12G not a thing?
SAS 12G is
It was
essentially two
supposed to be a
SATA
thing.
6G cables together.
It's kind of gotten overshadowed by M.2 PCIe and stuff like that.
I
And,
guess.
no, there is still no 840 Evo. Wait, yeah, 840 Evo M SATA. There are still no patches. I sat down with a person from Samsung last week and yelled at them specifically about that.
Any patches for my 840?
That was
Oh,
also
wait.
included in
They
the
never
conversation.
admitted it was a problem.
Well, yeah, I was more of that conversation was I had to make it clear that there is a bug with the 840 the most recent 840 Evo firmware update, 840 Pro, 850 Evo, 850 Pro, that the queued trim thing for Linux, where they're reporting queued trim. I had to make it clear, and then that at least started an email chain to hopefully the right people. The person literally typed the email to very other high up people at Samsung as I was sitting there basically dictating to the PR person. He's like, okay, now it does what? And then I was basically saying it, and as I was saying it, he was just like doing the dictate thing and just like, typing what I was saying.
That's rough.
So maybe, hopefully, they'll fit in the next firmware. They would fix the queued trim thing, but it's kind of a moot point because the kernel has now been updated to blacklist the drives for queued trim at least. Hopefully not trim in general, but at least queued trim. So that just kind of solves the problem as long as you're on an updated kernel. But if they update the firmware, at least then you're not blindsided by that issue. If you're on an older kernel, or you'd want to fix and attack the problem from both ends for that kind of a bug. But I don't think we're getting SATA 4 or SATA 12 gigabit because it's kind of just replaced by dual channel SAS 12 gigabit.
Yeah, but when are they going to have PCIe in a format that is gonna you can have like 5 drives in your machine
U.2
that have a thin cable?
Yeah, U.2.
You what?
That's
U.2.
That's what U.2 is. That's what that cable is with that.
Oh, okay.
That's the mini SAS HD physical plug spec.
Why haven't we seen it? Remember when original SATA 1 came out? It was the stinking J Micron and who was the other? Silicon Image. And it was an inexpensive upgrade to your motherboard. And you had the cables. Why can't we have that now? Why?
I don't know. Just because it's just the frequency you're trying to transmit over that thing. Like, SATA cables can't handle PCIe bandwidth. That's why you have to use that special shielded, like, U.2 style cable, the mini SAS HD cable.
Weird cable.
It's just designed for higher bandwidth, which kind of worked out nicely with PCIe by 3 or by 4, 3.0, like frequency ranges. Favorite Mac game to Ken?
Unreal Tournament 2004.
You know what my favorite Mac game is?
Sun Tzu's Ancient Art of War.
Lunatic Fringe.
Oh.
The best screensaver ever. Of course, you pretty much have to emulate a really old Mac to play it now, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But it was
I still
amazing back
say
then.
Ancient Art of War rocked.
Upcoming Acer or Asus IPS curved G-Sync, maybe having 100 hertz monitor.
I don't think 100 hertz is possible. Maybe it is.
It depends on the resolution.
99.99999.
If it's the higher resolution, I think you're limited to 75.
Actually, that might not be true. I think we might have a 100 hertz monitor with that resolution sitting in a box.
Really?
Yeah. I need to open that tomorrow.
Okay. Because the way to figure it out is take cinema 4K resolution, which is slightly higher than just what your regular 4K resolution is, but take that number of pixels, multiply the horizontal by the vertical, and then also include like your frames per second at 60 frames per second. Like that pixel rate, if you subdivide that down into some other aspect ratio or resolution, the refresh rate that you end up with is pretty much what the maximum is going to be, unless they decide to like double the bandwidth that's going through the scalers and stuff, which I don't think is going to be a thing yet.
That's no, that's not a thing.
3440
Yeah, no,
by
you can't do 100
1440.
hertz at 3440 by 1440.
You can?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then there you go. You could probably be
What
100.
is the first hurdle to having more than 4 gigs of HBM?
The release of HBM2.
Yeah.
A huge bowel movement.
The second one.
All you need is more fiber. You get bigger.
You
amounts.
always need more fiber.
Yeah, no, it's just the way they designed it. HBM1, I mean, it's a certain amount of density to the bus width, and it's not like they had trillions of dollars to develop this, and so they set a goal, and then they have design that does this, and it's not like they can have a whole lot of flexibility in what they're doing because there's only so much R&D. HBM2 is going to increase that to 8 or 16? Or
It's
16
32
to
gig
max?
total.
32
Yeah.
max.
Yeah. So 8.
So yeah, until HBM2 comes out, then we're going to see the 8, 16, 32 gig.
It was funny. We got the XSPC Fury X water block in today, and I was looking at the instructions, and they very specifically tell you, do not try to clean the thermal paste in between the HBM stacks.
Yeah.
Leave it there so you don't end up nicking a stack of memory. Because it's all just buried.
I mean, if you're careful and you're using like a Q-tip or something, you probably
If you use
okay.
Art to clean, you'd get most
that
of the way
too.
there.
Yeah,
But
that'll just dissolve.
I
it.
could definitely see some people going at it. And
Yeah, it's essentially a thin layer of epoxy that's
Yeah.
kind of bonding those things, and
that'll be bad news.
What happened to the Josh Tech Twitter messages?
We just kind of stopped. No particular reason, I guess.
I wonder if anybody was tweeting appropriately.
We were mostly just seeing if it would work and then using that for future applications.
Yeah.
Much like my testing yesterday, which I was pretty excited at.
And this podcast, we were trying to juggle like Ryan being remote and everything, so this would not have been an ideal time. 920 board has SAS built in. I mean, if you have an enthusiast machine and you want 12 gigabit SAS, you just put a 12 gigabit HBA in there or a RAID card. Like,
Yeah, but
you
then
can
you
get
have
it.
to find
Then you have to find a
an
product.
enterprise drive.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, then you're getting an enterprise drive. You're paying enterprise prices for that drive, obviously, and then that an enterprise drive is not optimized for more consumer kind of use. I mean, it'll be very consistent. Don't get me wrong, but it will be on average slower than a consumer optimized drive would be for the smaller amount of random I/O that a consumer usage sees. Anyway,
Arbiter mentioned that he still has his UT2K4 discs right there.
oh,
I actually brought this in the other day because I was cleaning, and
ah.
it's the CD version, of course, because I couldn't find the DVD version in stores when I bought it. So it's
Yeah, well, I can one up that.
What do you got? Windows 98 on floppies?
If only you could see.
Yeah,
Ken.
I can't see. It's way too small.
It's the Unreal Tournament 2004 DVD Special Edition
With the
metal
headset.
case.
Oh, sweet.
That was the one I
that?
wanted. Damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll have to go on eBay.
Complete game on DVD-ROM.
That came with the headset. Yeah.
Nice. Bonus DVD and Unreal Editor video tutorials.
I installed
Nice.
this from CD so many times, too, over the years. It's a ridiculous amount of time. So I don't know if it was Unreal Tournament or WoW that had the hack for this. Like, if you just, copy the DAT file from the secondary CDs
Yeah.
off, then you could install it continuously without having to break and change CDs. So you'd copy the contents of the first CD into a directory, then copy all the DAT files from 2, 3, 4, 5, and then run the executable.
Yeah, and then you can get it done.
So you could walk away.
Yeah. I still have a few game DVDs. Most of them are
Good lord, I've
Riven
got
and-
100 in front of me easy. It's not even funny.
what? DVDs?
CDs and DVDs.
Yeah, mine are all
Two
like
versions of Neverwinter Nights, one platinum, one diamond, Max Payne, Aquanox, all the Battlefields, Diablo 2, heck, Diablo 1 expansion, Hellfire from Sierra, which I don't think was even legal. Got
We-
that damn thing.
we do have decent internet, and Steam downloads for us go at almost 100 meg per second. So
Yeah, what's what's the speed of an optical drive?
It's what, 12?
not-
I mean,
12
obviously,
seconds?
not-
like a 52x optical drive.
not 100 meg per second.
No, it's like 12 megs.
Yeah,
1x is 150k per second.
yeah. Oh man, there's
So-
the Unreturnment Editor's Choice Edition had like 10 discs. Mod installer disk 3. Mod
Lord.
installer disk 1.
Starflight 2. Hell yeah. Was that the one with 2 floppies?
Looking at the wrong dude.
I think you had to switch floppies on that game. Trying to remember.
Oh, in high school, I got like
Oh crap! You guys
10.
can hear the stroking of the mic.
One-
Sorry.
0.2 meg floppy, 5 1/4 for something like $15 for a
Yeah.
box of 10. It was such a deal. It was Imation. It was the good stuff.
It's funny how there are always parallels to the same story, but mine are way too modern. Like, I remember buying dual layer DVDs at $1 a piece and it being super cheap.
Starflight 2 was 360k floppies. Yep.
The first game I ever played was a Star Trek game on a microcomputer. That it was, it had like the 12 by 12 grid, and like an X was the Enterprise, and a 0 was Klingon starships. I can't even remember it, but it was too hard for us when I was 7 years old.
It's the reason I don't like neodymium magnets, Alan, because I just found a shard attached to my chair because they shatter easy.
Oh. What was the first game I played? Might have been. Okay, so there were Commodore games, but like the first IBM game I played was that Red Baron game on like monochrome screen or something. It was like a red. I think it was just called like Red Baron. It had like a little airplane flying around with the screen scrolling across very slowly. Like you could watch the update from top to bottom.
A friend of mine, his dad worked at the school district, and they had a bunch of microcomputers, and they had one that was a supposed, and of course, computers were magical at the time when you were 8, 9 years old, and this one was a kind of an ancestry type thing, and it would take your name and it'd go through all these calculations and figure out who was one of your ancestors. And of course, my friend wanted to show me who his ancestor was. It printed out and it ran out of paper because it was based on paper, and it was like, George Custer was one of your ancestors. And I was always pissed to never find out who my ancestor was, even though it was obviously all bullshit.
Mail order monsters and Bruce Lee. Oh man, Aztec Challenge is what it was called. Archon. There was an Archon 2. We're just rattling off Commodore games now. You ever play Commodore? No. Oh,
No,
you
I never
don't
touched a
have no
C64.
idea where you
Lunar
were missing.
Lander.
You have no idea where you were
Lunar
missing,
Lander
man.
on one of the original Commodores.
Bruce
That
Lee
was a
was
good
the
one.
shit. Choplifter was like amazing on Commodore. Frickin' Mail Order Monsters. Racing Destruction Set. That was another EA game. That was back when EA actually made good games. Although they did this insane copy protection, even back then, copy protection, right? And the funniest thing was it was copy protection that was intentional bad sectors on the disk, okay, that you couldn't copy. It had to be an unreadable sector. on a disk, and you can't create an unreadable sector from the system side of a Commodore, right? And so I had my copy. I had my copy of the game, and the way you would make it load is you'd start loading it, and then the ECA logo.
Yeah.
Like it was like some kind of EC. There was more letters than just EA back then for Electronic Arts. Like it was E something.
Electronic Computer?
No, it was I don't know, but whatever it was, the logo would show up and it would change color. Like if you had the real version of the game, the drive would error, and then you could actually hear the sectors like tick, 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 like as it was going, right? And it would flip to move the head, and it would get to the bad spot. No, it's supposed to be bad, so it would just skip over it. And it would just load quickly, right? And the logo would change color as it was going through the game, and they just made that color changing operation part of like every time you go to another track, it would just change a color, right? So you would just open the little lever on the drive, like it would go ahead a track, and then you would open the lever on the drive, thereby removing the head from the spinning disc, right? And then of course it would read an error. And then the logo color would change, and you'd close the drive again, and then it would click, and you'd open the drive door again, and you basically just do this to trick this game into loading. So that's how you would play copied games.
How'd you find that out?
No,
but like, how did that information disseminate at that time?
Bulletin boards with my Commodore branded 300 baud modem.
I guess BBS was the thing then, right?
ECA. Oh, was that not Electronic Arts? I thought Electronic Arts like derived from the circle, square, circle, triangle logo ECA thing. Man, now I might be wrong, but no, I was pretty sure it was like. Anyway, yeah, it was definitely a hardware hack.
We should just title this.
And then there was a fast load cartridge for Commodore. But
what was the Zenith game system? The Omni or what was that?
I don't know. There was a
because that was the one where it was so basic you did plastic overlays on a 19-inch screen.
You're talking about the Magnavox Odyssey?
Odyssey,
yeah,
yes.
It wasn't Zenith.
So the
Ralph Baer died this year. He was the guy that invented that in video games. Well, drawing things on CRTs, essentially.
So the Wildcat. So there was this software called Fast Hack'em that was on the underground for Commodore, and it was like the Commodore's version of disk copy, right? And like if you didn't have two of the floppy drives, you would actually have to swap them like a couple times, and would try to load it into as much memory as it could, and you'd have to swap disks back and forth like 3 or 4 times, back and forth to make a copy. And then it had a thing called the Nibbler, which was an added feature to Fast Hack'em. How am I remembering all this crap? This is like 30 plus years ago. The Nibbler would go in and patch the copied game so that it would run without the copy protection. So, and they called it the Nibbler because it would change nibbles. It would change 4 bits at a time.
At least things just haven't changed.
They just haven't changed. It's still the same.
Things never change.
But yeah, just
somebody makes a protection, another person.
When you see those the cracks that circulate around these days and how they have music playing.
I never see those. I don't crack software.
Okay, yeah. So when you hear me fire up something in the office and it's playing this weird music for something, right? The whole, and it's like this, synthesized kind of like track based music. That all derived from like all the way back to like the C64. Commodore, like the C64 games. The people that would release those games would add their own intros to the games. With that kind of music.
I see.
And that's where that eventually turned into, because the SID chip on the Commodore was like amazing for the time. Like it could make just like, you still hear music today that they synthesize with a SID chip, right? So, yeah, anyway. There was that.
Should title this, Ken Learns About Old Technology.
Ken learns about old stuff. I never had the cassette drive for the C64. Thank God. But there were plenty of times where I would type the load command incorrectly and it would tell me to press play on tape, even though you didn't have the tape drive connected. That was interesting.
Like I said, some things never change.
You know, my brothers would often program little games to the TRS-80, and they'd record it to the cassette, and of course I didn't know what they were doing. And so I'd like pop out the cassette, rewind it, and record over their programs, and they were so pissed. Because it would take hours to copy the code from the books, the game books that were often included, or you could buy from Radio Shack.
Knight Rider, I am not talking about a demo. Those were different. There were other tracks that would be added before the game that was not meant. Like, demos were awesome, too. That was another thing. That's actually probably an even better thing. There would be demos. So these guys would put together all of their...
Yeah, I know what that is. I know what C64 demos are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, they would do amazing things compared to, like, even the games that were coming out.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Other stuff that was awesome was Paradroid. Was an awesome game. Ken just looks at me funny. Karateka was good, yeah. Impossible Mission. That was like Summer Games, Winter Games, Impossible Mission. That was like when they were doing the funky, like actually animating a guy smoothly, like running from the side. That was like a huge deal because like nobody was doing that correctly until like those came along.
You know, and here's the first bug that I ever encountered. We had gotten the TRS-80, and we had gotten the game Starfighter. And it came on a cartridge that would pop in. And this version, you could not actually dock with the Star Dock, which looked like an hourglass on screen because it was very, very basic graphics, obviously. And so we like finally called the support, and they're like, "Yeah, it's a bug. You need to actually send your cartridge in. We'll reflash it, and we'll send it back to you, and it'll be patched."
Day one patches. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
There was Stacker. That was for IBM.
So how many bits per second would that be by mailing it a cartridge had 16K of memory? If even that.
Still the fastest transfer method.
At that time. Yep.
Never underestimate the bandwidth of a station wagon full of tapes going down the freeway.
Yeah.
Somebody wants me to do a quick rundown of all media storage devices known to man.
We definitely don't have enough time for that.
Nope. First fully functional 16-bit zip client for 64. That's true.
What was the skiing game that had the abominable snowman that's coming to you? What?
Ski Free?
Is that what it was?
Pretty sure. That was like a...
That was another Windows game.
Yeah, that was also a Windows game.
Well, it ended up on Windows.
Spy Hunter was good on Commodore, yeah. Raid on Bungling Bay was like amazing. And The Last Ninja was like the game that had like the best soundtrack for a long time. Yeah, there were still some games from back then still hold records of stuff, even though my computers hadn't really been all over the place and everything. It's just that everybody that had one had that. Like, there were just some things that if you had a Commodore 64, you also had. And then there was, like, this short list of just givens. They didn't come with it. You acquired whatever those things were. You just had them. There's Raid Over Moscow was another good one. It was, like, 5 games in one. And then there was Lazy Jones, which was sampled in that Kerncraft 400 song. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's from a Commodore game.
Yeah, I remember seeing that somewhere.
Yeah, Last Ninja music was like amazing.
Oh, someone mentioned they play these games at a barcade. The second barcade in Cincinnati opens on Friday.
Second? Mm-hmm. There's 2 now. I still haven't been to the first one.
Well, gotta get going.
Get on it.
I'm delinquent.
Yeah, there's a arcade in like Fairfield called Arcade Legacy, and they decided that they were going to open a barcade. So it was an arcade people first opening a bar as opposed to the opposite.
Knight Rider, you didn't recognize that was Lazy Jones? Like when that song first came out, I was like, this sounds awfully familiar, and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, and then it just dawned on me, like, that's Lazy Jones, man. Like that's, and then I had to like go and fire up an emulator like that night just to play the game again. That game had like 100 games in one. Like you were this little dude in like on a terrace with like 3 levels, and you'd go into doors, and every door was a different mini game. It was just, yeah.
So have your Commodore?
Parts of it.
Wasn't the Atari 2600 released in like 77, 78? Was it 79?
I don't know. Google could probably tell you pretty easy.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the first computer. Well, actually, yes, it was. It was one of the first.
C64 poke codes. You could just do like, there were all sorts. I had like a lot of the sys codes memorized. You could like peek and poke. You could just like randomly read to and write from memory from the command line in BASIC. Like directly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the shit.
So advanced. Why don't we have that anymore?
I mean, we do. You just have to use a debugger because nobody bothers to do that anymore. Nobody cares.
I need to handle all of the memory management.
It's like a lost art.
All of the memory
Yeah,
management.
1978.
There is so there was a game called
Oh,
Paradroid.
77. Retail availability. September 11th. 77.
So any of you guys that use the C64, and if you played Paradroid especially, this is eye-opening. There was like a blog, basically like a blog at the time, which really meant the author of Paradroid, while he was writing the game, made notes to himself and kept a diary, and then submitted those in batches to like Compute's Gazette or something, and then they were published. And if you Google like Paradroid, you know, and like throw some key terms in there to like try to find like this thing, there's like it's on the internet. Like someone transcribed this to like a few web pages, and it was like a 2 or 3 or 4 part thing where the guy is describing all of the workarounds he had to do to make this game do what it did on the Commodore, like in detail, which is like just amazing.
It's pretty
right?
awesome.
It's like, I couldn't get this function to work like this, so I figured out how to do it this way, and blah blah blah. It's like, holy crap, this is awesome. But
when you have no Stack Overflow.
I mean, he was talking about like the tricks, because like the Commodore screen had a bezel around, like it had a drawn buffer around it, so you had your screen in the center. It was like, because most people had televisions, so you had to like kind of compensate for the 10 or 20% overscan, right? And this guy like figured out this novel trick to like change that border color, because you weren't supposed to change the border color, and he made that part of the game. Was like if the ship was at like red alert or yellow alert, the background would change to those colors. It was like, that's like so genius just to do that for a game. It's like, imagine if you could change the bezel color of your laptop as you were playing a game, and that was like part of the game experience, right? Birth of a Paradroid. It was in Zap magazine, and it's on zap64.co.uk. They actually have an archive of it there. And I mean, it's like, you know, Wednesday, May 1st, blah, 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 blah. And just like, Zap64 have asked me to keep a diary, and today I have to start it.
And I went to ET.
And then he just goes
It was
through this.
fantastic.
He just goes through this whole, you know, day 3, horrible. I'm going to have to change all the graphics. Like, that's, you know, that's how development works right there, right? And it just goes through this whole thing. I need to figure out what year that was that this guy did
Does it
this.
say on the like the top of the page?
But like, so it was him and then somebody else working on it, right? And he I may be misremembering this, but he talks in there about sending discs off.
Yeah.
Like, just think about that.
Yeah.
Like, that was you know, he's writing a game. You can't send that over the internet back then. It would be way too slow, even if you could do it, right? It would be quicker just the next day, right? So he's just basically just mailing discs back and forth with this other guy that's like helping him QC code and stuff like that. That's awesome. Anyway.
People thought merge conflicts with source control were bad.
I know, right? That's probably why you had a very small number of developers back then.
No, we touch the same function. What do we do?
Yep, there you go. That's El Tech Gato got it. Played Paradroid, never beat it. All you had to do was clear all the levels of the ship. That's how you beat it. I was like, I don't know. I just loved all those they had like little technical things, and like there were like 20 or 30 or 40 different types of like robots you would take over on the ship and stuff like that, and they all had different stats to them. And I just like my brain just locked onto that game back then.
I can't imagine.
I had like a stack of index cards where I had written out all of the specs from all the things in the game by hand, so I knew and had like a reference of like, yeah. But speaking of games you wouldn't beat, Hacker 2 on Commodore was pretty much impossible to beat. Commodore just had a lot of those games you would play in a very dark room and just like get enveloped and stuff. It was cool. Josh is...
I'm out of here.
He's out. I'm probably out too.
Yeah.
I'm out of hair like a bald man, which is true.
Oh...
All right, fellas. Have a good night.
Have a good night, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Met Malcolm Gladwell at the coffee shop. Oh, yeah. Malcolm Gladwell was on a podcast I was listening to recently, the Star Talk.
Oh, yeah?
He was on Star Talk. He's a really cool just guy to listen to. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, yeah. We're probably jetting.
Yep.
Because we're tired.
The mouse button's over there, so it'll take me a while to get to.
Oh.
Lazy.
I'll just keep talking until Ken slowly gets...
I'm just looking at something right
makes
now.
it
Yeah,
across the
that's
office.
exactly what he wants.
What? What you talking about, Willis? Oh. First time you ever seen Ken. He was on the Aftershow
A few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago. We've kind of only been doing this when Ryan's not been here. It's kind of like...
He's been watching this in and out.
Yeah, I know. He popped in the chat.
Oh, well.
Yep.
Play us off. I'm going to cut it.
Sorry, I'm not a cat.